All right, let's get right to it.
Yes, we will discuss China. I've spent some time with Xi Jinping, and I hope we're going to get a chance to discuss China.
President Biden and Charles Michel, the president of the European Council. They are at the Europa building in Brussels in this set of urgent and emergency meetings among world leaders discussing Russia and its attack on Ukraine, which happened 1 month ago. Rhonda Colvin, we were just talking about unity and the theme of unity.
Okay, so as far as I believe, the press conference itself is still scheduled for half an hour from now. It's all kind of confusing because I guess there was some kind of press conference an hour ago. I have to admit I'm a little bit confused because it was scheduled for 40 minutes from now. But he did a press conference. We're just going to keep it here under the maybe assumption that it's all coming up. Let me see. Biden press conference. Let's see here. Yeah, it's every time he travels, it always gets extremely confusing with the time change where nobody knows what the hell is going on.
Access to more.
All right, so we're going to keep it here and we're going to continue monitoring it. But as far as I know, it's at the top of the hour. So that may have been an earlier thing, and then now he's in a short meeting, and then he gives another press conference. Okay, so we're going to watch it all. But I have so many things for you guys, just because some people miss it. Let's just very quickly do the mango song.
Uh-oh. Mangoes?
My bag of mangoes.
Uh-oh. I love mangoes too.
99 cents. Okay. Now that we are up under Biden's regime, my bag of mangoes now costs $11.99.
That seems like a pretty good deal. A bag of mangoes? Aren't mangoes like $3 each? That's it. I want what, $8 or $11? That sounds good.
The American people will lie. And highway robbery is what you're doing. Bring my mangoes back down. My bag of mangoes. My bag of mangoes.
Mangoes?
My bag of mangoes. Bring my mangoes back down. Raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Bring my mangoes back down.
The Wisconsin crowd identified with the mangoes.
Disproportionately affected the American people. Those who want me to be healthy. Those who want me to be healthy. It's highway robbery is what you're doing. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of
Mangoes?
All right, now I feel like we're actually ready to start. Okay, so whether or not the press conference is at the top of the hour, if the press conference was the thing an hour ago, then we'll just look at that at the top of the hour. But in the meantime, I have so many other things to talk to you guys about. Here's one thing I'm trying to figure out. This morning, I appeared on the Daily Wire, the Michael Knowles show, and I have the full clip. We're going to be publishing it in 35 minutes to our YouTube channel. Do we want to look at that now? Is that something we would want to look at now? I haven't reviewed the appearance. I think it went fine. Is that something we would want to look at? The only thing is I might have to ask you guys for a favor, though.
I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
No, a legal favor. Okay, so let's look at it because I'm so interested in it myself. But just promise me that when we publish this to our YouTube channel in 30 minutes, you'll like it and comment and share and stuff like that. Okay. So they invited me on the Michael Knowles show. This is sort of like one of the subsidiary shows of Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire. They wanted to talk about the definition of woman and why Ketanji Brown Jackson didn't answer it or whatever. So let's just jump in and see sort of how it went. Okay. We'll all be reviewing it together for the first time.
We are not giving the best argument for the other side, or that we simply don't understand what the other side is saying. So in the interest of actually hearing out the other side. I'm very pleased to bring on David Pakman, who is the host of The David Pakman Show. It's a nationally syndicated progressive TV show.
And yes, I did have a shit-eating grin on my face for a lot of the interview because I can't take this seriously. You guys know that.
And radio show. I'm always really grateful to progressives who come on this show. We invite lots of them on. Very often they say no. Sometimes they come on. So just to make sure we're not strawmanning anything, let's bring on David. David, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a unique pleasure to be here, Michael. Thank you.
So, David, you saw the clip. You've been watching the Ketanji Jackson hearings. Am I crazy, or should a twice Harvard-educated nominee, federal judge, nominee for the Supreme Court, who is a woman, be able to define what a woman is?
I can't say if you're crazy. That would be for a mental health professional.
For my doctor.
You're either dishonest or ignorant, and we can maybe figure out which. So here's the deal. I mean, I'm kind of, we're just meeting each other. I'm sort of kidding around, but here's the deal. There are no instances where when issues come before the Supreme Court, it comes down to the dictionary definition of a word. When it comes to who counts as a woman, or what is discrimination, or what is negligence, it's always in very narrow circumstances where dictionary definitions do almost nothing for you. So she was very smart not to play into these kind of rhetorical black holes, because whatever definition she gives, Michael, she then is going to be pushed into some corner with some case or article or book she hasn't read, by the way, and there's no upside to it. So if we're just having a good faith conversation about strategy, she did the right thing. Almost 60% of Americans believe she's qualified, and she is. And that's really all there is to it. It's kind of boring.
Well, I agree with her. I don't agree with you that it's boring. I think it's one of the most interesting questions in the country that we're now at a point where we can no longer even define man or woman. But I do agree with you on strategy. She's in a very tough spot because her side of the aisle, and she's relatively leftist, even by the standards of the Democratic Party. So on her side of the aisle,
so this is like, you see, I use my face to suggest that what he's saying is wrong. You really have to pick your battles here, because I could interrupt there and go, she's really not that far left, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, you kind of have to pick your battles.
A new definition of woman. Well, they haven't given the definition of woman, but it's not the old definition of woman, which is a person who's not a man. That is out because of the transgender movement. And so,
like, that's another thing where it's like, no, the definition of woman was never everyone who's not a man, because you had intersex people, for example. So like, that's also wrong. But again, you can't interrupt every single time.
She knows that if she gives this new definition, which is a woman is, I don't know, a woman is someone who says that he or she is a woman. That's going to alienate, I think, the vast majority of Americans. If she gives the old definition that a woman is a female human being and
oh, wait, is Biden speaking now? No, he's not. Okay, what are people talking about? No, he's not speaking. All right, let's continue.
Female is of or denoting the sex that can bear children and reproduce and produce eggs, for instance. She knows that will alienate her base, and she knows that now is apparently controversial in the law after the Bostock decision, after other transgender decisions. So I understand the strategy, but what about the law? What about the definition? You say she shouldn't be quoting the dictionary. Well, fine. Shouldn't she at least be able to give the legal definition of a woman? Shouldn't she, a woman, have some sense of what that is? I'm not a meteorologist. I can tell you if it's raining.
Yeah, there is no legal definition of a woman, and that's exactly the point. The point here is when it comes to the court is in a position, or will be in a position, or might be in a position, to decide for the purposes of a particular set of facts based on a claim brought by someone who appeals a case about these issues. And so it's literally irrelevant to her job as a Supreme Court justice. And so, again, we can have a cultural discussion outside of the context of the Supreme Court. In the Senate's job in evaluating, is she qualified? It's an irrelevant question. And by her qualifications, she's more qualified than any of the 9 justices currently on the court. There's no way to deny that.
I think you can, because I think all of the 9 justices on the court can tell you what a woman is. And so I know we're getting back.
Have they been asked?
Because they've never been asked to do that. No, nobody's ever been asked to define words in this way during hearings. So you could speculate that, but they've never been asked. So
they've never been asked.
Impossible
I
to
agree,
say
but
that.
I've never, but I, as a gambling man, I would bet the farm that Justice Alito could tell you what a woman is. But you're right; they've never been asked because it's never been controversial before. But I want to get to a point you just made. You said there's no legal definition.
You guys see how they brazenly move the goalposts. He goes, every other justice she's the only one. Every other justice has defined woman. And then I go, actually, none of them have. And he goes, well, they've never been asked. Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we agree.
Of a woman, but there must be, because there are legal protections specifically for women. So if we don't know what a woman is,
then Title III thing.
And Title IX. And Title IX is quite controversial.
Have a good faith conversation, or one that's in some way productive, you know?
You're saying you and I, or you're saying Ketanji Jackson?
You and I, yeah. I don't know if, I mean, listen, the Republican senators obviously didn't want to have a good faith conversation. I was talking about you and I, Michael.
Yes, well, I do want to, I mean, this is why I'm granting you you're making the point on political strategy. I totally grant you that. That was the right move for her to make if she wants to avoid
relevance.
But then bring up Title IX. I mean, there are legal protections for women. This is coming before the court. It's come before the court in the last term. There are going to be a lot more cases coming before the court coming up. It seems extraordinarily relevant that we know what this woman thinks of these issues and of a basic question of biology and human nature. What is a woman? I mean, I don't think that's a bad faith question for the senators or for me to ask.
No, it's not necessarily bad faith, but we have to be able to, what I hope are reasonable people, Michael, understand that in the context of her role as a Supreme Court justice, it doesn't come down to a biological opinion. Like, can you at least grant that piece? Well, that it's true that for what the Supreme Court decides, these are narrow issues where, when it comes to Obamacare's constitutionality, which Amy Coney Barrett never, refused to weigh in on, or with all of these things, these are really narrow legal decisions, and there is no way in which a dictionary definition of terms does anything for us.
Well, it might do something, but I grant your point a little bit, except that Marcia Blackburn didn't ask for the biological definition or the dictionary definition. That's what Ketanji Jackson added. She said, I'm not a biologist. But all Marcia Blackburn asked was, just tell me what a woman is from a legal perspective, a constitutional perspective, a philosophical, I mean, whatever.
That's literally not what Marcia Blackburn said. I would encourage you to pull the clip and identify the time at which she said that.
She said she didn't mention biology and she didn't mention the dictionary. She said, what's the
But you just asserted that she said she wanted the legal and philosophical. She never said that.
No, I didn't say that. I said I just said Marcia Blackburn asked for the definition, any sort of definition that Ketanji Jackson could give of woman. She didn't specify biology.
Now you're backtracking.
I'm not backtracking at all.
Look, he just said it. Like, just go back. Here he said the legal and philosophical. Like, it was 20 seconds before. And now he says, I never said that.
All Marcia Blackburn asked was, just tell me what a woman is from a legal perspective, a constitutional perspective.
He just said it. Then he denies it 20 seconds later.
Philosophical, I mean, whatever.
That's literally not what Marcia Blackburn said. I would encourage you to pull the clip and identify the time at which she said that.
She said she didn't mention biology and she didn't mention the dictionary. She said, what's the
But you just asserted that she said she wanted the legal and philosophical. She never said that.
No, I didn't say that. I said
Come on, guys. I mean, this is what I talk about, where the reason I don't do this often is it is a waste of time.
I just said Marcia Blackburn asked for the definition, any sort of definition that Ketanji Jackson could give.
That's not what he just said. She said 20 seconds prior.
Woman, she didn't specify biology.
Now you're backtracking.
I'm not backtracking at all.
That's dishonest now.
I'm not back. How am I backtracking?
No. Hold on a second. Let's be clear. 30 seconds ago, you said Marcia Blackburn didn't ask for the biological. She asked for the legal.
No, I didn't.
Let me finish the sentence.
Okay, but you're misrepresenting what I said.
Guys, am I misrepresenting what he said? I mean, we looked at it twice now.
I'm not. I would encourage the audience to rewind.
I would encourage that. I would encourage that as well.
But can I even get it out?
Sure,
I mean, it's okay. The problem with what you just did, Michael, is you just said Blackburn asked for the legal definition, and I said no, she didn't, and you said no, that's true. She actually just asked for the definition.
I'm sorry. Well, then, if either you misheard or it seemed that I misspoke, I'll.
That's genius. If I misheard or thought he misspoke, it's like, dude, no, you just bailed on what you said because you know it wasn't actually what took place.
Be very clear. Marcia Blackburn just said, what's the definition of a woman? She didn't specify anything.
Whoop. Uh-oh. What's going on now? We just the feed here. Here we go. Hold on. Let's continue.
Marsha Blackburn just said, what's the definition of a woman? She didn't specify anything.
Oh, man. What's going on? Let's see if I refresh it.
But
We'll go back to
worried
753.
sometimes. Now, you then said that biology has no place here, or that the dictionary definition has no place, but that's not what Marsha Blackburn asked for. She just asked a simple question.
Understand that in these Supreme Court hearings, the senators can ask the questions however they want, and the nominees can answer them however they want.
Or not answer them.
My opinion is, this is my opinion, and you can have a different one, and that's the great thing about America, Michael. My opinion is that if you're
like, obviously, I don't really say crap like that. That's me just not even taking this seriously.
Interviewing for the job of Supreme Court justice, it's reasonable to assume the questions have a legal bearing as to your role on the court. Given that, Judge Jackson was right to understand the point of the question is to back her into a rhetorical corner about legal definitions. And she was right to say, it's not something I can answer. These are narrow issues when they come before the court, and there's no reason that she would ask such a question. Do you know this guy, Jesse Lee Peterson? Have you heard of him?
I know Jesse Lee Peterson,
When I was on with Jesse, he said to me, David, define what love is and what a man is. And it's a really common rhetorical technique for the bad faith right to start with just pick a word and define it and use it to back someone into a rhetorical corner. It's a waste of time, Michael. Let's talk about real issues, please.
Okay. Well, I think that as a philosophical issue, but certainly as a legal issue too, the definition of a woman does matter, has mattered recently, and will matter soon. But I at least agree with you on the strategy. You have not convinced me of Judge Jackson's good faith confirmation hearing, but you have convinced me that she is a wise politician and that she's playing her hand the best.
Now, at that point, I could have said she's not a politician; she's a judge. But again,
that she can. Before I let you go, David, I know we're like way over. I am really not playing the game of giving you some impossible thing to define. But since the question of woman is up in the air, everyone's arguing over what it means these days. Do you have, either you yourself or you speaking for the progressives, do you have a working definition that you would use?
No, I don't do, like I told Jesse Lee Peterson, and there's so many, this interview is feeling a lot like that one, interestingly enough. I don't do dictionary, I do politics. And so, no, I don't spend time defining words. And here's in all seriousness, Michael.
Yeah.
Let's now talk philosophically. Really, we're talking, man to man now. Dictionaries are descriptive.
Even use of man to man is like, I'm not choosing that as part of my like regular vocabulary. You guys know that, right? I mean, okay.
Not proscriptive. So
well, they're prescriptive sometimes too. But they can be descriptive. They are descriptive and prescriptive as well, right? The word means this.
By definition, humans decide what to put in the dictionary, right? So they're just these are descriptive.
But they put it there because the words mean something.
At the time, believe.
Yeah, I mean, we could go down a tangent on prescriptivism versus descriptivism, and that might be good for a future appearance.
I don't know if it's a tangent, but
it would be a very good discussion, and I think it would be great to have you back. I truly appreciate your coming on and giving the progressive perspective on this, and I hope to have you back on the show. Where can people find you in the meantime?
DavidPakman.com, and it's been my unbridled pleasure to provide you these insights.
Thank you, David, very much. I appreciate.
All right, so there it is. That was my appearance on the Daily Wire. And anyway, so we'll be publishing that at the top of the hour. Let's see what we can do with it. Last time I was on Fox, I think it got 1 million views. I don't think this will, but it's still fun, sort of. It's just. His show is early. They record early in the morning. They send 10 emails. You've got to do a test connection with them. And it's just like, I have very busy days, which is why I don't normally do this stuff. But anyway, so that's what it was. I want to say thank you to Bowflexman, Sheldon, Aline, as well as Wookie Jack and Jen here for the 4 Twitch Prime subscriptions. Before we go to the Biden press conference, I do want to just, as you guys all know, when things get tough, I look for the moral clarity and insights of Tulsi. And so I want to see now Tulsi says she's being censored because her videos on Instagram aren't getting the right number of views.
Before coming on your show today, I found out that Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, is also suppressing my voice. Normally, on average, videos.
She fits in right. She fits in beautifully with the American right, which is I'm a victim. Everybody's targeting me. They're all doing horrible things to me. I am the epitome of the victim. Man.
That I post on Instagram get somewhere between 250, 300,000 views, tens of thousands of likes. The video that I posted last night or early this morning got about 10% of that, around 15,000 views.
Yeah. Now, this could be for a whole bunch of different reasons. It could be that there were Russian troll elements that were supporting her content, and now they aren't. That's possible. It could be that when you post stuff really late at night or early in the morning, it just doesn't do as well. We know that at the David Pakman Show. If I post a video at 1 a.m. Eastern, I don't expect it to do well. And then the third part is who cares?
And a couple of thousand likes. And it is very clear that they are doing all they can to suppress my voice, suppress the message that I'm carrying out. And
at Instagram, they meet and they go, you know what we really got to do today? You know what we've got to do?
And we will ban men.
No, we're going to suppress Tulsi. Her message is too powerful. We must suppress it.
This points to yet another example of this larger machine that is very clearly at
We're doing a class action lawsuit against all machines.
Work that is controlling our marketplace of ideas. And this machine is made up of the power elite. It's made up of these big social media tech giants. It's made up of the politicians, the powerful politicians from both parties in Washington, the military-industrial complex, people who feel directly challenged when anyone dares to question their narrative, the message that they want the American.
Okay. So anyway, if you were wondering about what's happening with Tulsi's Instagram, now we know. Another bit of news, North Korea is now testing a missile. Okay. Associated Press reporting North Korea test fired possibly its biggest intercontinental ballistic missile towards the sea Thursday, raising the ante in a pressure campaign aimed at forcing the U.S. to accept it as a nuclear power and remove crippling sanctions. South Korea's military responded with live fire drills of its own missiles launched from land, a fighter jet, and a ship. So that's going on. I don't know that I have too much else to say about it. Thank you to Spinach Monster and Fuasti for the Twitch Prime subscriptions. Let's now, if I may, get into the Biden press conference.
Good evening, everyone. With all the press is here, you must be getting very tired. Am I the 16th or 17th? At any rate, all kidding aside, thank you for taking the time. Today marks 1 month since Russia began its carnage in Ukraine, the brutal invasion of Ukraine. And we held a NATO summit the very next day. At that time, my overwhelming objective in wanting that summit was to have absolute unity on 3 key important issues among our NATO and European allies. First was to support Ukraine with military and humanitarian assistance. Second was to impose the most significant sanctions, economic sanction regime ever, in order to cripple Putin's economy and punish him for his actions. Third was to fortify the eastern flank of our NATO allies, who were obviously very, very concerned and somewhat worried what would happen. We accomplished all 3 of these, and today we're determined to sustain those efforts and to build on them. The United States is committed to provide over $2 billion in military equipment to Ukraine since I became president, anti-air systems, anti-armor systems, and
Yeah, there's a weird audio thing where it sounds like one of those Australian musical instruments. It's in the audio.
ammunition, and our weapons are flowing into Ukraine as I speak. And today, I'm announcing the United States is prepared to commit more than $1 billion in humanitarian assistance to help get relief to millions of Ukrainians affected by the war in Ukraine. Many Ukrainian refugees will wish to stay in Europe, closer to their homes. But we've also will welcome 100,000 Ukrainians to the United States with a focus on reuniting families. And we will invest $320 million to bolster democratic resilience and defend human rights in Ukraine and neighboring countries. We're also coordinating with the G7 and the European Union on food security as well as energy security. And I'll have more to say about that tomorrow. We're also announcing new sanctions of more than 400 individuals and entities in alignment with the European Union. More than 300 members of the Duma, oligarchs, and Russian defense companies that fuel the Russian war machine. In addition to the 100,000 U.S. forces now stationed in Europe to defend NATO territory, NATO established, as you already know, 4 new battle groups in Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Slovakia to reinforce the Eastern Front. Putin was banking on NATO being split. My early conversation with him in December and early January was clear to me he didn't think we could sustain this cohesion. NATO has never been more united than it is today. Putin is getting exactly the opposite what he intended to have as a consequence of going into Ukraine. We've built that same unity with the European Union and with the leading democracies of the G7, in the G7. So I want to thank you, and I'll be now happy to take your questions. Since there's so many people out there, been given a list. Now, how about Chris?
Yeah, the audio sounds like a didgeridoo. It is very weird. All right, let's continue.
Associated Press, first question.
Thank you, Mr. President. So you've warned about the real threat of chemical weapons being used. Have you gathered specific intelligence that suggests that President Putin is deploying these weapons, moving them into position, or considering their use? And would the U.S. or NATO respond with military action if he did use chemical weapons?
You know, on the first question, I can't answer that. I'm not going to give you intelligence data, number one. Number two, we would respond. We would respond if he uses it. The nature of the response would depend on the nature of the use. Josh of Bloomberg.
Perhaps I'll just project, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
If I fired your voice, I'd have been elected a lot earlier.
I'll give it a try. It's got a long arm. Thank you. Can you talk to
Guys, the audio and the visuals at this press conference are beyond parody. I mean, it's about, what is that, about a 25-foot long boom mic?
two things, sir? One, since your conversation with President Xi of China, have you seen any indications of action or lack of action from China that has led you to believe whether they will intervene and help Russia, either with the sale of arms?
Did the thing almost just hit him in the face? This is, look at that. There's oh God, this whole political world is crazy. I gotta see that again.
Perhaps I'll just project, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
If I fired your voice, I'd have been elected a lot earlier.
I'll give it a try. It's got a long arm. Thank you.
Look at this.
Can you talk to us about two things, sir? One, since your conversation with President Xi of China, have you seen any indications of action or lack of action from China that has led you to believe whether they will intervene and help Russia, either with the sale of arms or...
Oh my God, what is happening? The shaking, and then it drops and almost hits him in the face.
Or the provision of supplies to support this war in Ukraine. And secondly, can you say whether this, the conversation today turned to the subject?
Oh, there's another reporter holding it. Oh God, it's you couldn't script this. Do you guys see how there's another reporter holding it? That is unbelievable. This is the best.
Of food shortages and what the U.S. will do to address wheat shortages in particular as a result of this war. Thank you.
On the first question relating to President Xi Jinping of China, I had a very straightforward conversation with Xi now, I guess it's 6 days ago, 7 days ago, in that range. And I made it clear to him, I made no threats, but I made it clear to him that make sure he understood the consequences of him helping Russia, as had been reported and as what it was expected. And I made no threats, but I pointed out the number of American and foreign corporations that left Russia as a consequence of their barbaric behavior. And I indicated that I knew how much he, because we had long discussions in the past about his interest in making sure he had economic relations and economic growth with Europe and the United States, and indicated that he'd be putting himself at significant jeopardy in those aims if, in fact, he were to move forward. I am not going to comment on any detail about what we know or don't know as a consequence of that conversation, but tomorrow or next Monday, that Ursula is having that conference with China, the first, on April 1st. We've had discussions because I think that China understands that its economic future is much more closely tied to the West than it is to Russia. And so I'm hopeful that he does not get engaged. We also did discuss today that there's a need for us to set up, NATO to set up, and the EU to set up a system whereby we have an organization looking at who has violated any of the sanctions and where and when and how they violated
That's
them.
interesting.
And that's something we're going to put in train. It's not done yet. So with regard to Xi, I have nothing more to report. With regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well. And because both Russia and Ukraine have been the breadbasket of Europe in terms of wheat, for example, just to give one example. But we had a long discussion in the G7 with both the United States, which has a significant, the third largest producer of wheat in the world, as well as Canada, which is also a major producer. And we both talked about how we could increase and disseminate more rapidly food shortages. In addition to that, we talked about urging all the European countries and everyone else to end trade restrictions on sending limitations on sending food abroad. And so we are in the process of working out with our European friends what it would take to help alleviate the concerns relative to food shortages. We also talked about a significant major U.S. investment, among others, in terms of providing for the need for humanitarian assistance, including food, as we move forward. Tarina of the Wall Street Journal. Watch out you don't get hit in the head there now.
Mr. President, in your view, does President Zelensky need to cede any Ukrainian territory in order to gain a ceasefire with Russia, or is that completely off the table?
Good question.
And then also, do you think that Russia needs to be removed from the G20?
Beautiful.
On the latter point, my answer is yes. That depends on the G20.
Wow.
That was raised today, and I raised the possibility if that can't be done, if Indonesia and others do not agree, then we should, in my view, ask to have both Ukraine be able to attend the meetings, as well as Well, basically Ukraine being able to attend the G20 meeting. And
That's interesting.
With regard to, what was the first question?
If you think that Ukraine needs to cease, give up any territory in order to get a ceasefire.
That is a total judgment based on Ukraine. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. I don't believe that they're going to have to do that, but that's a judgment. There's negotiations, that are discussions, I should say.
Yeah, so the point here is it's conceivable that Ukraine may cede some territory to Russia in whatever eventual ceasefire agreement is made.
That have taken place that I have not been part of, including the Ukrainians, and it's their judgment to make. Cecilia, ABC. There you are.
Oh, thank you. Sir, you've made it very clear in this conflict that you do not want to see World War III. But is it possible that in expressing that so early that you were too quick to rule out direct military intervention in this war? Could Putin have been emboldened knowing that you are not going to get involved directly in this conflict?
Interesting question.
No and no.
And to clarify on chemical weapons, if chemical weapons were used in Ukraine, would that trigger a military response from NATO?
It would trigger a response in kind. Whether or not you're asking whether NATO would cross, we'd make that decision at the time.
And my final question, because you're heading to Poland tomorrow, do you think that getting a first-hand look at the effects of this war on these millions of Ukrainians who have fled their country could change the way that you might respond?
I don't think so, because I've been to many, many war zones. I've been in refugee camps. I've been in war zones for the last 15 years, and it's devastating. And but the thing you look at the most is you see these young children. You see children without parents that are in those camps or in refugees. You see women and husbands, men and women who are completely lost and have no nose. You see the look, that blank look on their face, that absolute feeling of, my God, where am I? What's going to happen to me? And so what it will do, it will reinforce my commitment to have the United States make sure we are a major piece of dealing with the relocation of all those folks, as well as humanitarian assistance needed both inside Ukraine and outside Ukraine. For example, this is not something that Poland or Romania or Germany should carry on their own. This is an international responsibility. The United States, as a leader, one of the leaders in the international community, has an obligation to be engaged and do all we can to ease the suffering and pain of innocent women and children and men, for that matter, throughout Ukraine, and those who have made it across the border. I plan on attempting to see those folks, as well as I hope I'm going to be able to see, I guess I'm not supposed to say where I'm going, am I? But anyway, I hope I get to see a lot of people. Marcus, Der Spiegel.
Thanks, Mr. President. There's a presidential election coming up in 2024, and as you know, there are yes, it's true. And there are widespread concerns in Europe that a figure like your predecessor, maybe even your predecessor himself, might get elected president again. Are there any steps, anything you're trying to do and NATO is trying to do here these days to prevent what you're trying to do becoming undone 2 years from now? Thank you.
No, that's not how I think of this. I've been dealing with foreign policy for longer than anybody is involved in this process right now. I have no concerns about the impact. I made a commitment when I ran this time. I wasn't going to run again, and I mean that sincerely. I had no intention of running for president again. And until I saw those folks coming out of the fields in Virginia carrying torches and carrying Nazi banners and literally singing the same vile rhyme that they used in Germany in the early 20s, or 30s, I should say. And then when the gentleman you mentioned was asked what he thought, and a young woman was...
The gentleman you mentioned, isn't that just the best?
Killed a protester. And he was asked what he thought. He said, they're very good people on both sides. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to be quiet any longer. And when I ran this time, and I think the American press, whether they look at me favorably or unfavorably, will acknowledge this, I made a determination. Nothing is worth, no election is worth my not doing exactly what I think is the right thing. Not a joke. I'm too long in the tooth to fool with this any longer.
Not a joke.
And so we're a long way off in elections, a long way off. My focus, if any election, is on making sure that we retain the House and the United States Senate so that I have the room to continue to do the things that I've been able to do.
Right.
In terms of grow the economy and deal in a rational way with American foreign policy and lead the world, be the leader of the free world. So, but it's not an illogical question for someone to ask. I say to people at home, imagine if we sat and watched the doors of the Bundestag broken down and police officers killed and hundreds of people storming in. Or imagine if we saw that happening in the British Parliament or whatever. How would we feel? And one of the things that I take some solace from is I don't think you'll find any European leader who thinks that I am not up to the job.
Get vaccinated.
And I mean that sincerely. It's not like, whoa, the point is that when the first G7 meeting I attended, like the one I did today, was in Great Britain. And I sat down and I said, America's back. And one of my counterparts, colleagues, as head of state, said, for how long? For how long? And so I don't criticize anybody for asking that question. But the next election, I'd be very fortunate if I had that same man running against me. Whoa. You know, yeah, one final question, right. Hey, wait, hold on a second, please. I was supposed to be an hour ago at the European Union meeting and to speak. No, I'm thanking you. So someone I haven't called on before. You. Who are you? Okay.
Sir, deterrence didn't work. What makes you think Vladimir Putin will alter course based on the action you've taken today?
Let's get something straight. You remember, if you covered me from the very beginning, I did not say that, in fact, the sanctions would deter him. Sanctions never deter. You keep talking about that. Sanctions never deter. The maintenance of sanctions, the increasing the pain, and the demonstration why I asked for this NATO meeting today is to be sure that after a month we will sustain what we're doing, not just next month, the following month, but for the remainder of this entire year. That's what will stop him.
Come on, man.
That's not what I said. You're playing a game with me. I know. The answer is no. I think what happens is we have to demonstrate the purpose. The single most important thing is for us to stay unified. And the world continue to focus on what a brute this guy is. And all the innocent people's lives are being lost and ruined. And what's going on. That's the important thing. But look, if you're Putin and you think that Europe is going to crack in a month or 6 weeks or 2 months, why not? They can take anything for another month, but we have to demonstrate. The reason I asked for the meeting, we have to stay fully, totally, thoroughly united. Thank you.
Mr. President, sir.
If we could have everyone stay seated.
There it is. All right. So President Joe Biden delivering a press conference there. And quite a situation that we find ourselves facing at this point in time. I want to say thank you to Loca Vera, Daniel Gett, Wolfpact, Fwasti has gifted 4 subscriptions. That's 7. And Mazik is 8, putting us at 14. That does it for me today. Short stream, lot of work to do. Glad everybody got here. Right now, you can see my interview on the Daily Wire with Michael Knowles on my YouTube channel. Please share it. Please share it, folks. All right, we'll see everybody very soon.